We'll make this little video here concerning something that I've been hearing there the last couple of days um, about these George Floyd riots. And let's understand, I'm talking about the riots, not the demonstrations. I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of trouble catching my breath today. Some of you know I busted some ribs there a while back, and I'm still on the recovery road. So anyway, so what the word I'm hearing right now is curfew. Curfew. Um, well, let's understand what they're saying. We're going to have a curfew for interest of public safety. Yada yada yada. Okay. Well, let's understand what a curfew is under United States law and United States Constitution. And most of this is pointed towards juveniles because most curfews are about juveniles. The courts have said that the curfew is valid provided that it does not affect a constitutionally protected activity. So, kids going to or from church, or the kids in a demonstration. Is it a protest? That's a constitutionally protected activity. That's not even getting into adults. So they turn around and say that we can impose a curfew. It's a draconian thing. It's a violation of the liberties. Okay? It's actually a violation of the First Amendment to put a curfew on people who are protesting. Now, some people consider that the lesser of two evils. Well, what's the other evil? There's two different ways to deal with this. The other way to deal with this is to go after the people that are looting and burning and tearing things down, and dealing with them harshly. And I'm talking even using lethal force on them. Okay? Rather than now, people are saying that they're hitting the protesters. Well, that's what they're seeing. The protesters. That's the front. The front of this is protesters. Behind the front is the people that are doing the burning and throwing bricks and all that kind of stuff. And now they're saying there's piles of bricks showing up in advance of these demonstrations. That's another thing. That's a whole other subject. But anyway, talking about the curfew. Well, let's tie this up to some other things that have been going on recently. COVID-19, quarantining, social distancing, shutting businesses down, yada yada yada. Okay, instead of isolating the vulnerable and the sick, we're going to shut everybody down. We're going to take a little bit of everybody's liberty. That's not good. We cannot allow that. You can't allow your liberty to be plucked away from you like that. Okay. So these things, these things that the government. Excuse me, gotta catch my breath. These things that the government, these people in the government thinking that they have all this power that constitutionally they just don't have. They are doing so by usurping the liberties of the people of the United States. Okay, and it's time we recognize that. It's time we stood up to that. You can't do that. Sorry. We got to put a stop to it one way or the other, and either the people of the United States are going to take action, or they're going to fold, and this type of conduct on the part of the government is going to continue, and we're going to cease to be the United States. We're certainly going to cease to be the United States of our forefathers. So to go back to curfew a little bit, let's just history of curfew. Okay, now mostly you hear about curfews dealing with juveniles. curfews in the United States originally were they were part of Jim Crow laws. Okay? They were pointed at black people. If you were black, you had to be inside by a certain time. Usually it's daylight to dark. You had to be inside by the time it was dark. Okay? And that came back again in a lot of places during the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. If you were black, you had to be off the streets. Well, here's the thing. Okay, you can't do that. Okay, you can't tell these black. First of all, you can't do it to just black people because of a thing called equal representation under the law. Okay, but you can't do it to those people because they were engaged in a constitutionally protected activity, in a protest or a demonstration. So there it is. And what are we going to do in the United States? Are we going to let these people in twice this year already come in and stomp on our liberties? Is that what we're going to do? Might as well just give it all up. You know, as soon as you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. You know, so I can justify it for public safety. You can't justify taking anyone's constitutional rights for public safety. Okay, they have a thing, a legal precedent that basically says, in order to restrict a constitutional right, the government has to use the least restrictive means, and what that's called the strict scrutiny principle. Well, this would follow the strict scrutiny principle. So, in order to achieve the government's objectives, what would be the least restrictive means? With the least restrictive means being restricting everybody, or with the least restrictive means being restricting and acting against the few? I would say the few. Now, if that means you have to go out with the rioters, and in order to get control of it, you have to use lethal force, that's what it means. I'm sorry, that sounds horrible and cruel, but that's what it means. Okay, what does the least restrictive mean? Restricting everybody in the United States or everybody in a given area. Okay, in the city of Cleveland, restricting everybody. And rather than dealing with the protesters, which you're probably not going to affect anyway. Not the protesters, excuse me. We keep on getting that mixed up. The rioters. Two different things. It's enough is enough, Big Brother to get out of our business. Okay? All right. You guys take it easy.